They promised me it would be different this year. After 3 Christmases spent apart, my daughter finally said the words I had been quietly carrying in my heart like a fragile ornament, afraid it might shatter if I touched it too hard. Come stay with us, Mom. We really want you here. The kids miss you. It doesn't feel like Christmas without you. So I believed her. I booked the flight that same night, wrapped the gifts carefully, packed my warmest sweater, the green one that made my eyes look brighter, and I folded every last bit of hope I had left into my suitcase, right between the pajamas and the scarves. I didn't know then that hope can be heavy when no one is there to help you carry it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it really began. 3 weeks before Christmas, my phone rang while I was standing at the stove, stirring a pot of chicken soup. It was one of those gray Vermont afternoons, where the sky presses low against the windows, and you're grateful just to be warm. When I saw my daughter, Karen's name, light up the screen, my hand actually trembled. Karen didn't call often, and when she did, it was usually rushed, half conversations, noise in the background, always something pulling her attention away. I turned off the stove. "Hello," I said, already bracing myself.
Mom, do you have a minute?
"For you." I smiled softly. "I always have time." There was a pause, the kind that comes before a favor, or bad news. I waited. "We were talking last night," she said carefully, "Brad and I, and we realized it's been way too long since we've all been together." My chest tightened, slow and painful. "The kids are growing up," she continued. "Ethan's already 12. Madison's almost 10. They barely remember what Christmas with Grandma feels like." I closed my eyes. "I remember?" I said quietly. "I remember all of it?" "Well," she said, and I could hear a small smile in her voice. "What if you came out here this year? To Phoenix. Spend Christmas with us. A real family Christmas. Brad's taking time off. We'll do everything. The tree, dinner, presents. All of it." For a moment, I couldn't speak. I felt something rise up in my throat, thick and sudden. "Mom," she asked. "You still there?" "I'm here," I managed. I wasn't expecting this." "I know we've been distant," she said. "And I know things haven't been easy. But I want to change that. I want the kids to really know their grandmother. I want us to be a family again." I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand, hoping she couldn't somehow hear the tears. "I would love that, Karen," I said. "More than you know?" "Great," she replied quickly. "I'll text you the dates and the address. We'll figure everything out." We talked a little longer. About the weather. About the kids' school. She sounded warm, familiar. Like the daughter I remembered from years ago, before distance turned conversations into obligations. When we hung up, I stood alone in my kitchen and cried. Not from sadness, from relief. From the dangerous, wonderful feeling that maybe, finally, things were changing. I booked my flight for December 22nd, landing at 40:15 in the afternoon. I paid extra for a window seat because I wanted to watch the clouds. I wanted it to feel like I was flying towards something, not just leaving my quiet little life behind. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest I'd felt in years. I knitted Madison a lavender scarf, her favorite color, found Ethan a vintage compass at the antique shop downtown, the kind his grandfather would have loved. For Karen, I wrapped a pearl bracelet that had belonged to my mother. For Brad, a simple leather wallet. I even bought myself a new blouse, emerald green, soft fabric, slightly nicer than anything I usually wore. I wanted to look like someone who belonged. I told my neighbor Ruth I'd be gone for 10 days. She promised to water my plants. I told my friend Dolores at church, and she squeezed my hand and said, "It's about time, Eleanor. You deserve this." I believed her. On the morning of my flight, I woke before dawn, checked my suitcase twice, took one last look at my small house, the little Christmas tree glowing softly in the corner, and whispered a quiet prayer before locking the door. The flight itself was smooth. I watched a movie I barely followed, smiled at a baby across the aisle who kept peeking at me, and when the captain announced our descent into Phoenix, I pressed my forehead to the window. The desert stretched out below, gold and brown and unfamiliar, so different from Vermont, so far from everything I knew. We landed on time. I smoothed my hair, picked up my bag, and stepped into the terminal with my heart pounding, scanning every face. Families were reuniting everywhere, children running, grandparents hugging, laughter echoing through the hall. I kept looking, and looking, and looking. I moved slowly through the terminal, my suitcase rolling behind me like a quiet promise. I told myself they were just stuck in traffic. Phoenix was a big city. Maybe Brad had taken a wrong exit. Maybe the kids were impatient and bouncing around in the back seat, begging to come inside. I checked my phone. No messages. No missed calls. I walked past baggage claim and followed the signs toward the exit, my eyes scanning every car that pulled up to the curb. I stepped outside, and the heat hit me instantly. Dry, sharp, nothing like the cold I'd left behind. December, and it felt like summer. I stood near door 4, just like I texted Karen weeks ago when we talked logistics. Ride, share signs, honking cars, people hugging hello and goodbye. No familiar faces. I sent a message. Just landed. I'm outside near door 4. Can't wait to see you all. The little check mark appeared. Delivered. I waited. 5 minutes. 10, 15. People came and went. A security guard nodded politely as he passed. A woman pushing a stroller paused and asked if I needed help finding someone. No. I smiled, forcing confidence into my voice. They're just running late. By 30 minutes, my feet ached. I sat down on a bench, my suitcase between my knees like an anchor. I called Karen. It rang 4 times. Voicemail. I left a message, light and cheerful, the way mothers do when they don't want to sound needy. Hi, sweetheart, it's me. I'm here at the airport. Just checking in. Call me when you get this. I waited again. 45 minutes. An hour. The sky began to change colors, the sun dipping low, painting the clouds in soft oranges and purples. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt lonely. I tried Brad next. Straight to voicemail. That was when the worry crept in. Not panic yet, just a quiet tightening in my chest. I told myself not to overthink it. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Karen. I felt a rush of relief that lasted exactly half a second. Hi, Mom. I'm so sorry. Things got crazy today. A last-minute opportunity came up. Brad's company surprised us with a holiday cruise. We left earlier today. I read it once. Then again, my hands went cold. We tried to call, but it went straight to voicemail. There's a key under the mat at the house. Make yourself comfortable. We'll be back on the 28th. Merry Christmas. That was it. No explanation. No apology that actually felt like one. Just words on a screen. A cruise. They had left on a cruise. The same day I flew across the country because they told me they wanted me there. I sat very still. Around me, the airport continued to hum. Cars pulled up. Families reunited. Laughter drifted past me like something happening in another world. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Shock has a way of hollowing you out, leaving no room for tears. Eventually, I stood. My legs felt heavy, like they didn't quite belong to me anymore. I walked back inside and ordered a ride, share, giving the driver the address Karen had sent weeks earlier. The drive was quiet. The neighborhood was one of those endless developments. Beige houses, identical driveways, trimmed lawns that looked untouched. The driver wished me a Merry Christmas and pulled away. The key was under the mat. I let myself inside. The house was silent. Too silent. It smelled faintly of artificial pine from a plug in air freshener. The living room held a tall, perfectly decorated tree, matching ornaments, white lights, no handmade decorations, nothing that looked like children had been involved. The kitchen was spotless. The fridge nearly empty. On the counter sat a folded note. Mom, help yourself to anything. Wi-Fi password is on the fridge. See you soon. I stared at it for a long time. Then I carried my suitcase down the hallway. The guest room was small. A twin bed, beige walls. No photos, no warmth. Like a space meant for someone temporary. Someone passing through. I sat on the edge of the bed, and that's when the tears finally came. They came hard and fast. For the flight. For the gifts wrapped with care. For the hope I'd packed so carefully and carried so far. I cried for every birthday card unanswered. Every call returned late, or not at all. Every holiday I'd spent alone telling myself next year will be different. When the tears slowed, something else settled in. Not rage, not bitterness. Clarity. I looked around that small room and imagined the days ahead. Christmas morning alone in someone else's house, waiting for people who had already chosen something else over me. And I knew, suddenly, with painful certainty, I wasn't going to stay. I stood up from the edge of that narrow bed and wiped my face with the sleeve of my sweater. For a moment, I considered staying, telling myself it was fine, that I could wait, that this was still better than being alone in Vermont, that mothers are supposed to understand, supposed to bend, supposed to make themselves smaller so everyone else can stay comfortable. I had done that my whole life, but something inside me finally refused. I picked up my phone and searched for hotels near the airport. I didn't want luxury. I didn't want distractions. I just wanted a place that was mine, a door I could close knowing I had chosen to be there. I found a modest hotel with availability and decent reviews. 2 nights. That was enough. I booked it. Then I wrote a short note, folded it neatly, and placed it on the kitchen counter where Karen's note had been. I've gone to a hotel near the airport. I needed some space. I'll take care of myself. Mum, I left the key beside it. When the rideshare arrived, I didn't look back at the house. There was nothing there for me anymore. The hotel room wasn't special. Neutral carpet, a bed with crisp white sheets, a lamp by the window. But the moment I set my suitcase down, something eased inside my chest. This was my choice. That night, I unpacked slowly, hung my green blouse in the closet, laid out my toiletries. I sat by the window and watched the city lights flicker in the distance. Phoenix sparkled, full of people celebrating together. For the first time, the loneliness didn't feel like failure. It felt like honesty. Christmas Eve arrived quietly. I showered, dressed carefully, and went down to the hotel restaurant. It was nearly empty. A few business travelers, a tired-looking couple whisper, arguing over coffee. I ordered scrambled eggs and toast. The waitress, a young woman with a Santa hat slipping sideways, brought my coffee before I asked. "Rough holiday?" she said gently. I smiled, surprised by my own laugh. "You could say that." She nodded. "You're not alone. A lot of people end up here instead of where they planned." "At least I have my thoughts?" I said. She smiled. "Sometimes that's enough." After breakfast, I went back to my room and sat on the bed with my phone in my hands. That's when the truth finally settled in. For 5 years, I had been sending Karen and Brad $800 every month. It had started as help, then support, then habit, a quiet transaction that bought silence instead of closeness, and I had allowed it. I opened my banking app and stared at the automatic transfer. Then I made a list. First, the money. Second, my will. Karen had been my beneficiary since my husband passed. But there was someone else, someone who had never made me feel like an inconvenience. My grandson Tyler, Karen's son from her first marriage. Tyler was 24 now, finishing nursing school in Colorado. He called me every Sunday without fail. When I had pneumonia last winter, he drove 8 hours just to sit with me and bring soup. He never told his mother. He didn't do it for credit. He did it because he loved me. I typed a message. "Merry Christmas Eve, sweetheart. I'm thinking of you." The reply came almost instantly. "Grandma, Merry Christmas. I miss you. How's Arizona? Is Mom driving you crazy yet?" I stared at the screen for a long moment. "I'm at a hotel near the airport," I finally wrote. "Long story. I'll explain when I get home." A pause. Then wait. "What, are you okay? What happened?" "I'm okay, truly." "Just some unexpected changes." "I'll call you tomorrow." "Okay," he replied. "But I love you. Don't forget that." I set the phone down and pressed my hand to my chest. There it was. The love I had been chasing, not loud, not flashy, but steady. That evening, I walked to a small restaurant down the street. The waitress called me Mija and brought extra salsa. I ate slowly, savoring the warmth, the normalcy. That night, alone in my hotel room, I watched the city lights and felt something shift. I wasn't healed. But I was done begging. Christmas morning came without ceremony. No tree, no laughter. Just coffee, quiet, and a voicemail from Tyler waiting on my phone. "Grandma, I'm worried about you," his voice said softly. "Whatever happened with Mom, you didn't deserve it. I love you more than anything. Please call me." I did. We talked for nearly an hour. I told him everything. He listened in silence, and when I finished, he said quietly, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know she was like this. But I do know one thing. You matter. And I'm not going anywhere." For the first time in years, I felt chosen. I flew home the day after Christmas. The airport was crowded with exhausted travelers, delayed flights, and children crying into their parents' shoulders. But I moved through it calmly, my suitcase rolling behind me, my mind strangely clear. I wasn't the same woman who had arrived in Phoenix with a heart full of expectations. That woman had been waiting for permission. I wasn't waiting anymore. When I unlocked my front door in Vermont, the house greeted me with familiar quiet. I turned on the lights, lit a fire, and set my suitcase down by the stairs. My small Christmas tree still stood in the corner, unlit, its ornaments catching the glow from the fireplace. I plugged it in anyway. The lights flickered on, soft and steady. "Merry Christmas, Eleanor." I whispered to myself. You made it through. The next morning, I went to the bank. It was the same branch I'd been using for decades. The manager, Patricia, recognized me immediately. Mrs. Mitchell, she smiled. Happy holidays. What can I help you with? I need to stop some automatic transfers, I said, and update a few things. She studied my face for a moment, then nodded and led me into her office. As I explained, she paused. These are significant changes. Are you sure? I've never been more certain, she typed, printed, turned the paperwork toward me. I signed. Just like that, the $800 a month stopped flowing west. The silence I'd been paying for ended too. From there, I drove straight to my lawyer's office. Mr. Henley was older now, his movement slower, but his eyes were still sharp. I told him I wanted to update my will. I told him I wanted to set up a trust for Tyler. My daughter's name would be removed. He didn't ask for reasons. Families change, he said simply, and so do priorities. When I left, snow was falling lightly, coating the streets in white. Everything looked new, clean, possible. A week later, Tyler arrived. I watched from the window as he stepped out of his car, breath fogging in the cold air, duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He looked so much like his grandfather it made my chest ache. I opened the door before he could knock. "Grandma," he said, and hugged me like he'd never let go. We spent 3 days together. We cooked real meals, pot roast, mashed potatoes, apple pie from scratch. We played Scrabble by the fire. We talked about his classes, his plans, the pediatric unit he hoped to work in someday. One night, sitting on the porch wrapped in blankets, he said quietly, "I don't understand my mom." "You don't have to," I told him. "Just be who you are." I reached for his hand. "That's enough." When he left, my heart ached, but it was the kind that comes from loving someone who loves you back. A month later, a letter arrived from Karen. It was short, formal. She was confused, hurt, wanted to talk like adults. I read it once. Then I folded it and placed it in a drawer. Some doors don't need reopening. I am 70 years old now. My house is small. My life is quiet. And my family is exactly who I choose it to be. Tyler calls every Sunday. He visited again last month, this time with a young woman with curly hair and a laugh that filled my kitchen. They ate my cooking like it was a gift. I don't hear from Karen anymore. And that's okay, because I finally understand something I wish I'd known years ago. Love is not a debt. It's not something you earn by giving more than you receive. Love is a choice. And I am done waiting at empty airports. The quiet that followed surprised me. I thought closing that chapter would feel louder, like a door slamming or a bridge burning. Instead, it felt like setting something heavy down after carrying it for too long. Life didn't suddenly become exciting or full of people. It became honest. My days settled into a gentle rhythm. Morning tea by the window. Short walks when the weather allowed. Phone calls that didn't leave me wondering what I'd done wrong afterward. Tyler stayed exactly as he had always been. Steady. Every Sunday evening, my phone rang right on time. "Hi, Grandma," he'd say like the world made sense just because we were talking. He finished nursing school in the spring. I drove to Colorado for his graduation, sitting proudly in the crowd while he crossed the stage. When he found me afterward, still in his cap and gown, he hugged me and whispered, "I wouldn't be here without you." I didn't correct him, because love doesn't need correcting. Karen never called. I saw pieces of her life from a distance, photos online, holiday posts, smiling faces frozen in moments I was never meant to be part of. At first, they stung. Then, slowly, they stopped mattering. What hurt more was realizing how long I'd accepted being optional. How often I told myself this is just how families are when what I really meant was this is how they treat me. One afternoon, months later, I sat at my kitchen table with sunlight warming the floor and understood something clearly for the first time. I wasn't abandoned at that airport. I was released. Released from chasing approval, from confusing sacrifice with love, from believing my worth depended on how much I gave. I began to make small changes. I joined a book club at the library. I started volunteering once a week at the community kitchen. I stopped apologizing for taking up space in conversations. People noticed, not because I demanded attention, but because I finally believed I deserved it. One snowy evening, Tyler called with excitement in his voice. "Grandma," he said, "I proposed." I laughed and cried at the same time. They visited that summer. His fiancée sat at my table like she belonged there, listening to my stories, asking questions, washing dishes without being asked. Family, I realized, isn't always the people who give you your last name. It's the people who give you peace. A year passed, then another. One day, a small envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single photo. Karen's children, older now. On the back, a few words in unfamiliar handwriting. They ask about you sometimes. I stared at it for a long time. Then I placed the photo in a drawer and closed it gently. Some things are sad. But not everything sad needs fixing. What I know now, what I wish someone had told me sooner, is this: love is not a transaction. It is not a reward for loyalty. It is not something you earn by shrinking yourself. Love is presence. It's the person who shows up, the one who calls without needing a reason, the one who chooses you when it's inconvenient. I am not a backup plan. I am not an obligation. I am not the woman waiting at the airport while her family sails away. I am Eleanor Mitchell. I am 70 years old. I have a grandson who loves me, a home that feels safe, a heart that finally knows its worth. And that is more than enough. If you're hearing this and recognizing yourself, if you've waited on a curb, stared at a silent phone, or carried hope farther than it should ever have been asked to go, please hear me: you are not spare. You are not extra. You are not too much or too late. You are enough. Set your own table. Light your own candles. Wait for the people who show up. Not because they have to, but because they want to. They exist. And when they find you, you won't have to wonder if you're wanted. You'll feel it, like coming home.